Yo, what is up, guys? So I took one trade today on gold that I didn't exactly hold to full take profit, but let's talk about that real quick. So looking at the day real quick, let's first take a look at Nasdaq. So looking at Nas, what do we see with the previous day so far? So let me just delete all drawings on Nas real quick just so we can do a bit of analysis. On the 4 hour, what's happening on the 4 hour? On the 4 hour Wednesday over here is looking like we created a downtrend that did create a 4 hour chain of state delivery over here, and looking like these previous day candles are just looking like continuations of that. However, one thing that differs from today is that this previous day of Thursday did actually take out the low of Wednesday. So with that being said, zooming into a lower time frame, seeing exactly when that takes place, we see that that only does happen with the open of 9:30. So prior to 9:30, I didn't necessarily have any bias coming into it, other than the fact that I did want to see possible rebounds into that range or a break of this low over here. So that low ended up getting taken, and with that low getting taken, we also take out the previous day, two previous day New York lows, and we were pulled back into a possible, let's see if this is a 1 hour imbalance. Yes, it is. We got a set of 1 hour imbalances over here that looks like to be where we wanted to reject off of slash order block before. What used to be more exactly fit. This right here is the order block that we were trying to reject off of at that moment there. And then with that rejection of this order block, we create two 5 minute PD arrays, and those immediately get inversed. And with those being inversed, also created a BPR, a balanced price range. With that balanced price range, we didn't necessarily want to see price come back into any of these price ranges over here, but if price did come back into it, that would take away from a bit of our bullish bias. Zooming into the 1 minute, what we can see on the 1 minute is after taking out these previous highs, relative equal highs from New York, sorry, previous AM session, prior to AM session, we begin to see that we have a bit of a fluctuation in price action here. We start to see wicks closing beneath over here, and we have this little manipulation leg over here. And one thing to be aware of is on the 15 minute, if we go to the previous low, or maybe it could be on a 5 minute. Let me. I do believe it was this 5 minute right here. This 5 minutes, 1.5 standard deviation aligns with this consequent encroachment of the order block that we were looking at on the 4 hour. And with that is where we start to see our reversal. So coming into the early morning session, what we could have had our trade as is placing a limit over here with stop losses beneath this order block, which would have then still gone stopped out, but we could re-entered and taken a second position on any of these moves over here. But other than that initial buy off from that point there, what we can see is after this initial hike up and taking that, you do have a chain of state delivery after manipulating a high over here. And from here is where I wanted to see possible sell off. And I did not take the sell, however, because I was attached to the buy side bias, thinking that if we did want to take a buy, it would have to rebalance into at least one of the 5 minute imbalances. And until doing so, I didn't want to look for anything other than that. Although marking that out, I didn't take this position. In the meantime, looking at gold, what do we see? On gold on the 1 minute, it's a little bit easier to tell, but with this 9 p.m. candle over here, looks like we create the last low of this session here. And that last low is paired up with the chain of state delivery. Only when it's paired up with the chain of state delivery is this a valid area to draw out our deviations. So drawing our deviations from the candle wick to the candle body, we draw out that this 4 standard deviation over here and this 3.5 standard deviation are possible levels that we could reverse from, because the 3.5 standard deviation is manipulating this previous high over here, while the 4 hour is going to be pulling into a 4 hour PD area. So with that being said, as price action reached into the 3.5 standard deviation, I wanted to wait for a reversal. And although we did get certain reactions off of points like the second standard deviation over here, that those reactions weren't followed by displacement. For example, if I wanted to see a move from the second standard deviation, I would have first needed to see a break beneath these lows over here, which was not offered. And since that wasn't there, we had to move on to the next level. At the 2.5, we do see rejection, but at the same time here, no displacement beneath that low over here again. So what do? Go to the next level. This third standard deviation, it gets absolutely blown through, so we forget about that. 3.5, we start to see rejection based off that, and we start to see that this 3 candle fair value gap begins to get somewhat inversed of. And that 3 candle fair value gap can be, or not even the 3 candle fair value gap, but just the fact that each of these candles are an imbalance on their own, and this first imbalance, the breakaway gap, got inversed, so that's sign of bearish pressure. Although we can't take that with too much confluence, what do we wait for? We wait for this second high to be formed with another set of up close candles for another chain of Seder delivery. And that is where we get our chain of Seder delivery over here. So although with this trade, what you may have wanted to see initially is a chain of Seder delivery of this low, because we create a new set of lows, this chain of Seder delivery, although it's still valid, this becomes a new initial chain of Seder delivery that we would also draw our deviations from for example, targeting a reversal. So seeing that, we create a chain of Seder delivery and I enter a trade on the retracement of that. And with that being said, this was not my original stop loss. My original stop loss was at this candle wick over here. So where I had closed my position over here was a 1-to-1 risk to reward. However, as I adjusted my stop loss to the top of this candle body over here, trying to have this protected swing be my stop loss with a bit of room in case we did want to have a bit of spread, didn't end up being the exact play I should have taken, because the reason for my early close is the fact that this candle over here rejected off of this 1.5 standard deviation very cleanly. And with that being said, I did also have a 4-hour bias of this possibly being a bullish candle, as on the 4-hour, we didn't exactly pull into this 4-hour PD array that I wanted to see consequent encroachment get respected of. And consequent encroachment of said PD array would have aligned pretty nicely with this 4 standard deviation, so I was slightly scared of being part of the manipulation leg, and I didn't want to, become liquidity. So that's the main reason why I closed. Although I should have stayed confident in my bias and confidence in the strategy, I didn't. One thing to help me with that is every single day I enter a trade and I also have these deviations that I can draw out. I will use those deviations and I will only take profit at deviation levels. Second standard deviation at minimum. That would have given me a 1-to-4 risk to reward rather than the 1-to-1 that I had gotten. Sorry, not the 1-to-1. It would have given me a 1-to-2 compared to the 1-to-1 that I have gotten, as well as it have being a higher risk to reward regardless of whatever stop loss placement I had. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit too much, but trade hit in full TP, second standard deviation, 2.5 did get hit, and let's look over here as well. This is kind of another 5 trade example to just go over in the live market right now. As the second 2.5 standard deviation does get targeted, which also aligns with this order block over here, we also align this with the chain of Seder delivery over here with the pullback to chain to the state directly here. If you want to start the close of that candle, or even open this next candle, or even directly at the chain of the state, it doesn't even matter. Place your stop loss at the body of this candle, target 1-to-2, and that could have been a very easy, simple trade. You know what I mean? So even things like that, I didn't even reach my profit for the day. I only made $520 for the day on this trade over here. However, I still didn't take a position over here. That goes to say quite a bit about my trading, but still took a dub today. We'll see you guys in the next day.